Hello YouTubers, this is Matthew Williams, and I thought I'd just give you a little insight into my strange little life that I lead as a crop circle maker, and some of the stupid idiots that you meet along the way. I thought I'd give you a little bit of entertainment and tell you about some of these idiots that have crossed my path. This one will be entertaining, I think, because it's detailing what I class as the pricks and the stalkers. So, a lot of you may not know, but I do actually have a stalker problem. There's a certain woman who I've never met other than for a couple of minutes at a television recording I was doing a few years ago. Well, quite a few years ago, in fact. And you know, I was asked a question at the end of this interview by this person, and they said, you know, could they get hold of my number so they could get in touch? And I thought, well, seems fairly harmless, so I gave my telephone number out. And that's where my stalking started, with a certain Miss Tabitha Good, a ugly bitch, basically. That, I mean, I'm not anything against women, you know, or bitches, but this is like she was quite a strange looking girl, to be honest, with sort of gothic sort of setup. And anyway, so I started getting these harassing phone calls late at night, and I'd get hang up calls in the middle of the night, and you know, basically getting lots of crap. And then eventually I started getting text messages which revealed to me who this person was, and it was this Tabitha Good. And she was quite proud of herself, and she started telling me that you know, I was appearing in her house psychically and things like this. And I thought, you know, I'm dealing with a complete effing lunatic here. And you know, I tried to sort of say, look, you know, I'm not really interested in what you've got to say. And she would rant on about how I was, or how I had no right. Take this out. I can't speak with a chewing gum in my mouth. She would rant on to me about how I had no right to decry the Roswell alien autopsy footage. And I said, well, I think I have got a right to decry that footage, because, you know, it's patently fake, and the people who presented it, such as Ray Santilli, all crap, you know. And anyway, I said, you know, I've got a right to say that. I'm a UFO researcher, and I'm, you know, and I've been involved in this story for a while. She said, you've got no fucking right, you know. She used to rant at me on the phone, and I'm like, you know, Jesus, you know. She's like, aliens are real, and Roswell is real, and you've got no right, and anyway, some of these phone calls I used to get from her used to be, you know, like sort of 2 in the morning. I'd pick it up, and it would be like, where are you? And I'd be like, excuse me, you know, and the number would be withheld, and I'd be like, well, who is this, you know? Well, tell me where you are. I'm like, why the fuck should I just tell, you know, who is this? Is this Tabitha Good again? It's like, you're out, aren't you? Tell me who you're with. I'm like, what the fuck? So anyway, all this was starting to really piss me off, but then something happened that really put Tabitha Good to the forefront of my sort of interest, or lack of interest, really it should be, but certainly an instance to remember. I was actually in London, and a friend of mine, I'd asked him to look after the house and look after the dog. So whilst I was in London, my friend, well, my house number rang, and we were actually doing a film project at the time, and I was in the back of this car, and I was playing a part of an extra. So I was supposed to be reacting. I was supposed to be acting in a sort of pissed off manner. That was my role as the extra in the back of this car. And you know, the phone went. I said, "Oh, hang on a second," you know, and they were still filming, and it was my number. And strangely enough, when I answered the phone, it was this Tabitha Good on the phone, and I thought, oh my god, what the hell's going on here? How the hell is she in my house? How's she using my number? I was like, oh my god. So I got a real bad, I'm sure you can imagine the sort of feeling you'd get if somebody who's been harassing you for this amount of time is suddenly, you know, in your house and you're not there. So anyway, I said, you know, put Andy on, you know, and then the next thing I heard was Andy shouting and struggling, and the phone sort of being pulled around, and then the phone went dead. And I, because I, people who know me, I mean, I'd explained to them about this problem person, that if they ever turned up, to keep a lookout for this sort of strange-looking girl, and if she ever turned up, to just call the police. And I'd actually warned my neighbours about this, and I said, so I immediately rang my neighbour before I even rang the house number back to sort of try and get hold of them. I just rang my neighbour and I said, look, remember I told you about that girl that's been causing me all that trouble? I said, you better ring the police because for some reason she's in my house, and will you go round there and find out what's going on? And then I rang the house again, and my friend Andy answered, and he said, oh, she won't leave, she's causing all sorts of trouble, and I could hear stuff going on in the background. Anyway, I said, well, okay, the police are on their way, sort of like just hold fire and the police will get there, because I swear, this I just really knew this girl was nuts, from the conversations and text messages that she, sent me. So anyway, I rang back and I asked my neighbour what was going on. She said, oh, well, Andy came out of the house because we were trying to coax her out, and she's just locked your door and she's in your house, and we're waiting for the police to arrive. So the police arrived, and because Andy knew a way to unlock my door, because she'd actually bolted it, but he knew a way to unlock the door and get the bolt out of the way, he was able to get in the house, and the police then went upstairs, which is where she'd barricaded herself into a bedroom, and the police asked for her to come out, and she wouldn't respond. And they kept on trying the door and banging and saying, look, is there anybody in there? Coming out. Anyway, she wasn't responding, so they had to force the door open, apparently. And when they got in there, she was lying on the bed in the spare bedroom with a garden secateurs in one hand and a knife in the other, which had been both picked up from my kitchen. And then she sort of goes, oh, officers, what are you doing here? This is my house, and there was this strange man earlier on who was in here, and I think he was a burglar, and he shouldn't have been here. And they just went, oi, come on, out you come. And you'd think she would go quietly, but no, the story gets much more interesting. Apparently, she kicked and she screamed and she shouted, and she had to be literally manhandled out of my house. And she was taken to the local police station in Devizes, was evaluated, where they said that, well, I was actually told off the record, I won't say by whom, I was told off the record that she'd done nearly everything apart from throw her own shit at the police in the cell. So they were quite impressed by that, so much so that they sectioned her. So she was given a section, and she spent a couple of weeks in the Devizes local mental hospital. And then she was released, and she went back to London. And since then, she has continued with her text messages, with her phone calls, and I had to make a complaint to the police. Trouble is, even though she was in my house without permission, and she damaged some stuff while she was in here, including using my telephone without my permission, and so it's like the police said initially that they would like to charge her with something, because she did all of that. And then, of course, because she's mental, because she's a retard, you can't actually do anything to people who are like that. So she got away with it scot-free. Now, this is a photo of the bitch. The bitch. Ugly bitch. With gothic gear on. God. I don't know what the hell she thinks she's doing. I'm not interested in her. And, I seriously wouldn't be interested in somebody who's a mental case. So, But she's managed to get my telephone number from friends of mine when I've changed my number to try and evade her. She's managed to get the new number and carry it on. So she's very determined, and even though I've asked her not to call me, she said she has a right to call me. So I'm just about to change my telephone number again to try and get away from her, but I thought I'd just give you that little little insight into my life, and we'll carry it on in another YouTube now.